Hey everyone, this is Sellers.
And this is Stormy.
And this is Unforgotten,
where each episode will highlight unsolved missing, murdered, and suspicious death cases in Alabama in order to raise awareness and hopefully obtain some answers for victims and their families.
Please remember that any individual referenced in the podcast should be considered innocent until found guilty in a court of law, and any opinions or views expressed in the podcast are solely those of participants. Listener discretion is advised, as some of the content discussed in the podcast may contain violence or graphic descriptions and may not be suitable for all audiences.
Hey guys, welcome back. Today is a day at ACCA and Unforgotten that we hold close to our hearts. Or rather, the focus of our missing person case today, Brittney Wood, is close to our hearts. Today marks 12 years since Brittney vanished from her life in Mobile County and all the chaos that came to light occurring in and around Brittney's life, really most of her life. We thought a great way to share her story again on this day would be to have a family member come and chat with us and recap a bit about the case before we replay some highlights from the two-part episode that we aired back in January of 2023, our very first Unforgotten episode. So we have Stephanie Hanke here, who Sellers and I have gotten to know really pretty well over the last few years working on Brittney's case. And we really are blessed to call Stephanie a friend. I'll have her introduce herself. So, hi, Steph.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Well, of course, you're like your family. So,
yeah, it's been a blessing to have you and Sellers in my life. If not for y'all, I wouldn't know a lot of the information that we do now. Yeah, I don't know.
It's been a journey.
It has been. It has been since I believe it was January of 2022 that Sellers contacted me and asked if she could help.
Yeah.
And then I think it was maybe a couple of weeks later, if even that long, I'd start talking to you, and then it was just like the three of us just dug in deep. And y'all dug in deeper.
Yeah, we did. And deep indeed.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's definitely it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
That seems to get wide.
Yeah. And, it's frustrating as well. So, yeah, I mean,
oh, yes.
Anybody who looks into the case has got to feel, I don't know if more confused when they come out of it, but definitely more frustrated, I bet. So,
oh, absolutely. You end up with more questions than you do answers.
Yeah. So, Stephanie, for those who don't know Brittney's case and don't know who you are, why don't I have you just give yourself a brief introduction, and then we'll talk a little bit about Brittney, because really that's what we're here about. And I just love to hear your perspective and be able to share that with everyone on who Brittney was, and to you and to the family.
Okay. Of course, I'm Stephanie Hanke, and Brittney was my stepdaughter. So in 2012, she was 19 years old, and she was the mother of a 2-year-old. And that 2-year-old was the light of, still is, the light of all of our lives. And that was our common bond from the moment that child was born. So that was the reason that everybody's world revolved at that time. But as far as with Brittney, I had a very short relationship with her, as I did not marry her father and come into knowing Brittney, and she was 14. So I had 4.5 to 5 years of knowledge of Brittney. So anything prior to that is all hearsay.
Right. Yeah.
But those 4 to 5 years was very fast, unfortunately, very fast, but very memorable. 4 to 5 years.
Well, just the fact that her life was not a long life, lived at least up until she disappeared,
Right.
We don't know for sure that, she's not around. We still hope that she is out there. So.
Right. We can never stop hoping.
Yep. Well, if you were to describe Brittney, how would you best describe her as a person, her personality? And because I think we know that she's got a personality, right?
Right. She's been described so many times as a firecracker. So, and I would say, yes, that's a very good description of her. She could charm a snake. She probably played with snakes too. I would say she is a tomboy and a princess at the same time.
Yeah.
All about her looks, as far as being pretty and wanting to feel pretty, look pretty, but would get down in the mud and play football in the mud too. So very charismatic.
Yeah.
Best friend you can have, but also somebody you wouldn't want to cross.
That's how I kind of got the impression, over the years, looking at all the different, we've probably seen every bit of material out there on Brittney now.
Right.
They talk a lot about what a fierce friend that she was.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, she had her issues, don't get me wrong. She was a teenage mom, and with what came out after her disappearance, it explained a lot. A lot of people don't want to talk about that. She did have she had a drug addiction, and some people say it was a lot worse than what we know. Maybe we were too close to see it.
Yeah, it's possible. It is hard for family, especially if they're good at hiding it, and plus, the family activities going on around her as she was growing up masked a lot of that, I'm sure, because some of them were involved in that part of her life as well, the drug addiction and that sort of thing. So
exactly.
When half your family is involved in some part of that, it's kind of hard for people to see through everything.
Right. Some might call it self-medicating, masking the pain. She had gone through so much since she was a child.
Yeah. In the episode, if you haven't already heard the episode, you will learn about that. So it's not quite so cryptic. But why don't I have you give the audience just a brief kind of 1-2 on what happened as far as just the disappearance goes.
Okay, as far as the disappearance, so as far as from my side point of view, because I did not see her or speak to her on the last day that we know, on the 30th.
Right.
Her and or her father and I, our last conversation with her was on that Tuesday. And it was, she wanted to go to see her younger brother, it was a visitation day. He was in the youth center. She wanted to go see him. We had not, her father didn't have the gas to go, and we had made plans to go on that Saturday, which would have been June 2nd. So for those that thought she just ran away, no, she had plans.
Yeah.
So there was no, I don't know why somebody wanting to run away probably wouldn't make plans.
Not especially that in that way. I think people who make plans as a cover usually do something a little less personal. I don't know.
Right.
You know, I mean, this was to go see somebody that she really wanted to go see, and pretty detailed plan, I guess.
Right.
I mean,
She also
relatively
had
speaking.
plans for the Friday, the Friday too, for June 1st. She had made plans. She, at that time, she did not have custody of her child, but she made plans to have her child on that day.
Right.
On the Friday, on June 1st. She was supposed to have her child on June 1st. So that Friday and Saturday, she had plans. So she was expected to be around that Friday and Saturday. Yeah. So, because that was a Wednesday and Thursday. It was Wednesday was the last time she was seen. And and nobody had any contact with her on Thursday. And it was Friday that we started looking for her.
Right.
And it was the Tuesday, the day before the last day she was seen by her mother, was when we talked to her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I know that's kind of confusing. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Well, it is all a little convoluted, and it just depends on what direction you're coming from, you know, that time frame when she was last seen and where she was and who saw her and, you know, all of those things. You know, in a nutshell, it gets her basically leaving her mom's house and being picked up and basically never being seen again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because we made plans, everything was fine. Her demeanor was no different than any other time. I cannot say that I remember anything different. I cannot say, you know, she was happy, she was sad. I can just say I don't remember anything standing out. There's nothing that makes me remember anything standing out.
Yeah.
And I know that I do remember that speaking to Jessie after Brittney left to go be picked up by the friend, you know, and it was said to me that she was going to be with Courtney. That was what I was told too. Not by Brittney. That's what Jessie said.
Right. Yeah.
So that's, like I said, that's all I have is the hearsay.
Right. Yeah.
I did not try to reach out to Brittney on Thursday. I had no reason to. You know, there was nothing, I had no dire reason to reach out to her on Thursday. On Friday, when we found out about Donnie being shot or allegedly shot himself, I said to Jessie, because she's the one that called me and told me about Donnie, I said, have you told Brittney? No. And she says no. And then that's when we start trying to get in touch with her.
Right.
And through that's when we found out that she didn't go with Courtney.
Right.
She didn't go with the friend.
Yeah. Just amazing. You know, obviously she didn't want people to know where she was going. And there's lots of speculation about why she did what she did.
Well, not that she didn't want to know where she was going, because her friends knew. They were the ones that told us, no, she was going with Donnie, because there were several people that knew. It was just apparently she didn't want her mom to know where she was going.
Well, true. And she's the only one that she actually talked to and said that's where she was going to, right? Right.
As far as we know, because that's where we're getting the information about she was going to Courtney's, because no one else said she was going to Courtney's but her. Because like I said, I got my information of she was going to Courtney's from her.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
Because there was several people that said no, she was going with him. And then that's when, that's where we all got the information. And then that's when several people jumped. The father of her child, her mother, her stepfather, there was a couple of other people, all decided to go to the house where Donnie was staying, the Waterworld house, and go look for her there. When they found out Saturday, after we reported Brittney missing.
Right. Yeah.
Because that Saturday, because Jessie called and asked, you know, she says, we still can't find her. Should we report her missing? You know, should she report her missing? And I said, yeah, you should report her missing. And Wally and I went over there to the Leonardo house. And when we got there, the officer I believe the officer was already there. And had just got there, was already there, but I do remember he was still in his car. And of course, he brushed it off as she's a runaway. She's 19. She's an adult. She can run away. He didn't say she was a runaway. He said she can run away if she wants to.
Yeah.
She's 19. That's how they treated the whole thing from the beginning.
Yeah.
They said that several times. Several meetings we had. I think she had a couple of, she had like a misdemeanor warrant. Yeah. And they brought that up. And that is why in one of the interviews, Chessie says, "You're not in trouble. You can come home. You're not in trouble." Yeah. It's because they brought up the misdemeanor warrant.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a lot of definite unanswered questions and what ifs about this case. Boy. Well, since we aired this episode, I mean, it's been a year and a half. But even since then, there really just have been no developments. There was a search back in September of last year, 2023, on Johnson and Hayfield roads in Theodore, but that yielded nothing. We've seen a couple of posts where we thought maybe a search would take place, and for whatever reason, weather or other various things, that didn't happen.
There's been a lot of that throughout the years, that there'll be searches and then the searches are canceled, or but yeah.
But really nothing much else. We've tried to get the detectives interested in the case again and haven't been successful there.
No. From 2 years ago, there is a different detective.
Yes.
Than what it was when it aired from your podcast. There is a different detective. So
yeah. So we're working on that angle again. Yeah. We'll see how that goes, right?
Hopefully fresh eyes.
Right. Yep. And so we continue, and we just every once in a while go back in and kind of review things, see if anything new crops up.
And we're hoping with every bit of time that passes that somebody that knows something will say something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody getting a little older.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you could say something to Brittney right now, if she was out there and she was listening to all these episodes and people talking about her and she just hasn't come in yet, what would you say to her?
It's kind of a tough one. I mean, of course, absolutely. She's safe to come to me. She's safe to go to anybody. Mm-hmm. But if she feels that she's not safe and why she hasn't come in, she is. If I could just say, Brittney, you are loved and you are missed, and as before, you can always come to me, always, with open arms and no judgment, always.
Yeah, we still want to know the truth and we still want to have answers, but I think as far as giving you the opportunity to tell an offender.
Yeah. I do have something different than I have said before. Yeah. I do look at things differently now on a certain aspect. So I don't know how your listeners might take it, but that's okay. Maybe everybody needs to hear this.
Yeah.
But, I believe we are coming in the end times, and they need to repent. Those that know, they need to get it off their chest. They need to repent. They need to tell what they know and repent, because there is no way to heaven than through Jesus Christ. And so they need to repent and tell what they did. And that's the only way that they're going to be truly saved, is to tell what they did to that child and where she is. And there's no better time than right now.
Yep. This is all before you guys all listen to the actual episode, if you haven't already heard it before, or you haven't already heard the story before. So for those who haven't, you're going to get an earful, because this is really, we are so concerned about Brittney, and that's our focus, but really it's a wild story from every aspect, and just almost unbelievable. I mean, it really is the stuff that movies are made of. And it's unfortunate that it's that way, but they are part of Brittney's story, and it was in her life. And so you can't tell one without telling the other, but
unfortunately.
Yeah. So here are a few clips from our first episode, parts 1 and 2 of Brittney Wood. We encourage you to go back and listen to the episode, and we'll put the link in our description. And we thank Stephanie for being here today to help introduce the story to you for those who haven't heard it yet. And just to remind everybody, it's been 12 years, and we just want to bring Brittney home.
So today we're discussing the disappearance of Mobile County teen Brittney Wood. Brittney was last seen leaving her mother's home in Tillman's Corner on May 30th, 2012, around 7:20 p.m. She is believed to have been wearing a blue tank top, blue jean shorts, and flip-flops, and carrying a blue or pink tote with some personal items. So maybe let's start with a little bit of a background on Brittney. So Brittney was a young single mom. She had a somewhat tumultuous relationship with Andy, who is the father of her child. In fact, most of Brittney's life seemed to be filled with some sort of conflict. At an early age, she was molested by her maternal grandmother's boyfriend, and later testified against him in court proceedings related to child sex abuse, which ultimately landed him in prison for life.
Her family and friends describe her as a fighter and someone who never wanted to see those she loved. Shortly after Brittney's disappearance, law enforcement agencies in Mobile and Baldwin counties began making a series of arrests related to a child abuse investigation that began in early 2012.
So to keep the focus on Brittney, we will provide a link in the description to an AL.com article outlining the details and charges for each arrest.
In 2014, Baldwin County prosecutor Teresa Hines told AP that, quote, Brittney could have been huge. She could have corroborated so many things. Former Baldwin County Detective Eric Winberg even went so far as to call her a golden nugget.
We oftentimes look for that golden nugget, that one person that can make the difference in your case. In this particular case, Brittney Wood was that person.
Brittney's mother is Chessie Wood, and Chessie's married to Paul Houseknecht. Brittney's father is Wally Hanke, and he is married to Stephanie Hanke. Brittney also has 2 brothers, Derek and TJ Wood.
Chessie had several siblings, a sister named Sonia, twin sisters named Mindy and Wendy, and a brother named Scott. Wendy was married to Donnie Holland, and Mindy was married to Dustin Kent.
Just a few days prior to her disappearance, Brittney received a Facebook message from Donnie and Wendy's daughter.
Interviews with the media, and later in the docuseries, Chessie states she believes these messages angered Brittney and potentially pushed her to confront Donnie about what happened. The cell phone location data gives us a pretty good idea of the general location of Brittney and or Donnie. And based on other research, we can make an educated guess about the specific location. Fortunately, we've been provided with a pretty good amount of documentation, which definitely helps limit the amount of educated guessing that we're doing.
There is a cell phone tower at the end of Leonard Drive, which is the same street Chessie's home was on at the time. Brittney's phone began pinging off that tower at 11:41 a.m.
In episode 1 of the docuseries, Chessie said Brittney left around 7 p.m., telling her that she was going to see a good friend named Courtney. Chessie recalled standing in her front yard as Brittney walked down the street to meet whoever picked her up. Winberg, a former Baldwin County Sheriff's Office detective who initially led the investigation, said it was his belief that Donnie picked Brittney up at the end of Leonard Drive in Mobile County and then went to Styx River in the Wilcox area.
According to AL.com, Baldwin County Sheriff's Office, which we'll call BCSO for short, was never able to identify any individual who could place Brittney in Baldwin County. Whether or not there were witnesses, cell phone data puts Brittney in that area. So we know she was there. We just don't know for certain whether anyone actually saw her. So we have Brittney actively sending and receiving messages until 10:46 p.m. Then there's nothing. Then 2 messages are sent from her phone at 11:20 and 11:23. A flurry of unanswered incoming calls from 11:29 to 11:45 p.m. And then Brittney's voicemail is checked by her or somebody at 12:07 a.m.
And that call to her voicemail at 12:07 a.m. indicates she was still at or at least near the Styx River property. There's no activity whatsoever on her phone again until 1:47 a.m. when a text is sent from her phone to Bradley. That text caused her phone to ping off of a tower in Grand Bay. Now, I'm not sure the map on the docuseries here has the correct location of her cell phone ping in Styx River, but that's hard to tell.
And then that's the last time anything was sent from Brittney's phone,
which has never been recovered. To further complicate the matter, the one person who should have knowledge, Donnie Holland, was found on June 1st with an alleged self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. So it wasn't until the family started trying to call Brittney on June 1st to let her know what happened to Donnie that they actually began to suspect something was wrong. When Brittney wouldn't answer, Chessie said she called Courtney, and then she found out that Brittney had not been at her house at all and had never planned to go to her house, but actually had went to Donnie's instead.
So we know from Donnie's phone records that on the morning of June 1st, he started making phone calls around 8:21 a.m. Location information we've seen indicates that he was at or near Jennifer and Will Moore's home in Magnolia Springs at the time that call was made.
Okay, so to be clear, the Jennifer that Chessie refers to in the docuseries is the same Jennifer Gonzalez Moore that owned the Styx River property at the time. One and the same as the Jennifer Moore that was arrested in the sex ring.
But between 11:25 and 11:29, Donnie calls Wendy, at which point Donnie's phone pings off a tower near Karen Court. This is where his phone remains until after he's found and medical personnel remove him from the scene.
Wendy and Jennifer are supposed to be together at this point, so wouldn't Jennifer have known that Wendy was on the phone with him?
Winberg said in the series that Wendy called him to report Donnie's erratic behavior. Multiple calls are made and received to and from Jennifer Moore on Donnie's phone, and we know there's no possible way that Donnie made those phone calls.
Nope, because 911 received a call at 2:16 p.m. reporting a suicide attempt. As if the calls from Donnie's phone aren't sketchy enough, Wendy also deleted several texts from Donnie's phone. We were also told that later she figured out the passcode to Brittney's voicemail and deleted several minutes of voicemails too, all before the police had a chance to either hear or see any of that, apparently.
River Road is a dead-end street that runs next to Fish River.
Right. And Karen Court is just a smidge over a mile directly across Fish River, which means Donnie would have been sitting at the end of River Road to ping off that tower. So we've got Mindy saying Wendy found Donnie about an hour and a half or so after he dropped her off at Jennifer's, a little before 11. We've got Fairhope entering an incident report at 12:02. We've got a bolo going out somewhere around the same time. And then we've got no activity on Donnie's phone from 11:41 to 2:15, meaning there's no outgoing texts, no outgoing phone calls, and he's not answering any incoming calls.
Right. And then we've got a document that's never been discussed before. And I think it helps show just how convoluted these stories are. It's the narrative from the Escambia County Medical Examiner's Office. If Donnie used Brittney's gun, then I'd venture to say he had more than just an inkling she wasn't okay. For, quote, 3 days and nights, we sat in my living room without sleeping, eating, or anything, while Scott told her everything he'd found and that he'd been playing detective for months. There's not a date or time on when that occurred, but that had to be around the time that Scott filed the report.
Right. So if that occurred in February or even March after Winberg was assigned, then there's no way she learned about what was going on after Brittney's disappearance.
Now, after Donnie's death and after the public became aware of the child sex abuse investigation, Brittney's disappearance began to take a backseat. The arrest and subsequent trials stayed in headlines over the next couple of years, and many, including her family, remained hopeful that information related to Brittney's whereabouts would come to light during the trials.
Unfortunately, that didn't happen. According to the documentary, it would be almost 2 years before a search occurred on the actual Styx River property. Ray Mooney with Class Kids stated they were the first to search the actual property in January of 2014.
It's sad to say, but it's not surprising that Brittney still hasn't been found over 10 years later. When you look back through the interviews and articles and documents, they all have conflicting dates, times, and recollections. I think it would be overwhelming for any investigating agency taking it on, especially if it's had as many detectives as her case seems to have.
Brittney still has family that loves her and a daughter that's growing up without a mother.
I miss her.
They deserve answers, and they deserve to bring her home. Brittney needs and deserves to be brought home.
Mom, I love you.
We continue searching for answers to the question, where is Brittney Wood?
Disappearance of Brittney Wood.
Of Mobile mother
missing teenager.
It's been 4 long months since Brittney Wood was found.
Where is Brittney Wood?
Where is Brittney Wood?
If you or someone you know has any information on the disappearance of Brittney Wood, we urge you to contact the Mobile Police Department at 251-208-7211. You may also message us here at the ACCA via email or by messenger at our Facebook page.
Since Alabama Cold Case Advocacy's creation, we have dedicated innumerable hours to researching and networking in an effort to provide the largest platform we can to the cases we share. We shoulder all associated expenses with Alabama Cold Case Advocacy out of our own pocket, including the subscription fees for researching and production of the Unforgotten podcast to provide a cost-free avenue for the victims' families of those cases.
We hope you will join in our efforts to raise awareness of Alabama's missing and murdered and support these families who have been forced to carry the immeasurable loss of their loved ones and the fight for answers. If you appreciate our mission and you are inspired to make a donation, your extra support will enable the ACCA to continue our research, share the cold cases, and help those families know that they are also unforgotten.
Unforgotten is an Alabama cold case advocacy podcast recorded in conjunction with Riverside FM, hosted and distributed by Spotify for podcasters, available on your favorite podcast platform. Intro music for the show was created by Principles of Uncertainty, who also mixed and mastered this episode. Content and production is by Sellers and Stormy. Artwork by Sellers. Credits for music, sound clips, special mentions, and any source referenced in our podcast can be found in each episode's description. We hope you will join us on all the major social media sites and continue to raise awareness of our Alabama cold cases. Until next time, thank you for listening, and remember, justice may be delayed, but the victims and their families remain unforgotten.